Listen, I don't get The Exorcist. I'm not going to tell you it's bad. I'm not looking for easy outrage clicks here, nor do I intend to dispute the movie's impact or place in history. This is not a video to simply state that I do not like The Exorcist, because who could possibly care? You don't care. Be honest with yourself. I suppose I could make some half-hearted contrarian effort to pretend like I believe The Exorcist is a bad movie for some reason. I could say something like, the effects are dated, or the word exorcist is impossible to spell correctly on the first try. But you'd know I was full of shit. I'd be no better than that article going around about how Terminator 2 ruined the Terminator franchise, just provoking people into pointless, obviously calculated debate to steal time and attention I do not deserve by tearing down a beloved work of art. It's obviously a very good movie. The Exorcist is the rare horror film that not only transcends the stink that egghead types put on the genre, but transcends pop culture as a whole. The movie isn't pop culture, it's just culture at this point. Its influence can be felt not just in horror movies, hell, not just in movies for that matter, but in people's real-life religious beliefs and practices. Not many movies can take an obscure Catholic rite and transform it from an embarrassing vestigial artifact of a less enlightened time and into an accepted mainstream practice of the largest organized religion the world has ever seen. It is a good movie, I like the characters, I find the story compelling. I offer no dunks upon the film, I am devoid of dunks to offer you. However, the movie's not scary, even a little bit. Not just in the way that I don't find most movies scary, but like, I don't get why people would find it scary, genuinely. Does that matter? Should horror movies be scary? More to the point, must they be? Before I get into that, I have to allow an overpowering force to enter my body and guide it towards its dark designs. I too must become possessed, not by a demon, but by something far worse.
Capitalism. Hello, I am Marketus, and I have come to tell you of the Ridge Wallet. As the physical embodiment of commerce, I deal with money all the time, and living as I do in the bowels of hell, I need a pretty sturdy wallet. Luckily for me, each Ridge wallet is made with premium materials, backed by a lifetime warranty. Not only that, but my fellow evil spirits cannot steal my personal information because Ridge wallets block RFID signals. Nobody can scan all your cards straight from your pocket, a thing you should probably be more cautious about than you are. Ridge wallets are customizable and modular. You can have billfolds, you can have a cash strap, you can have both. It holds up to 12 cards with room for cash. If you'd like to live deliciously, go to ridge.com/scaredycats and use coupon code SCAREDYCATS, all one word, for 15% off your first order, and the bargain will be struck. Other companies might request your immortal soul, but Ridge has assured me that I am not allowed to demand that from you. So go ahead, cut loose the bulky old garbage filling up your pockets and upgrade to a Ridge wallet. I've been using one. I use it as my real adult wallet.
What just happened? Fuck it, who cares? So, The Exorcist, right? People call it the scariest movie of all time, so it's kind of hard not to go into it with absurdly high expectations. I watched it for the first time when I was 13 and I thought, oh, this one? This movie. This is the one that spooked everybody so bad. People were passing out in the theater from this one, huh? Okay. I don't get it. Why is this one so scary to people? What am I missing? There's a combative nature to the way that people go into horror movies that I greatly dislike as an adult. As though the point of watching a scary movie is to defeat it by not being scared. People don't act like this with other genres. You don't go into dramas and brag about how you didn't cry, or comedies to brag about not laughing. But with horror movies, there seems to be this contingent of people that treat them like they're not meant as entertainment. They're like a challenge or a contest of some kind, like a test of resolve. But the thing is, it's a lot easier to not be scared by a movie than to be scared by one. And that might sound counterintuitive, but hear me out. If a movie were actually genuinely making you afraid, you'd turn it off, you'd leave the room. You have to agree to watch it. You have to choose to do it. You have to engage with the movie on its terms to get scared by it. And that requires imagination and focus, because you know that you're actually safe. The fear that you feel is a kind of fantasy or a daydream. If you had to do anything else, you would just stop thinking about it. That's why the time you were most afraid after watching a scary movie is when you're about to go to sleep and you're just like lying in bed, because you don't have anything to do and that's where your brain goes. You wouldn't think about it if you were going to work. You wouldn't think about it if you were filing your taxes. In parentheses, insert joke here about how taxes are scarier than any movie. Oh, I wasn't supposed to read that part out loud. Because it's kind of neat, isn't it? It's fun and neat to get scared in a way that won't hurt you, in a way you have some control over, like a roller coaster or a haunted house or a third example. You gotta let the scares in. You gotta let the movie get you. Because the people that made the movie wanted you to be entertained. They want you to enjoy the experience of watching their movie. When they try to scare you, it's not a trick they're playing on you. It's not a prank to make you look wimpy. They think you'll like that. Or else why would you go to a scary movie at all? So if you go in with this mentality of, this movie's never gonna scare me, like I did when I watched The Exorcist when I was 13, of course you won't be scared. The Exorcist isn't real. There's no such thing as demonic possession or Pazuzu or Catholics. It's all make-believe. The vomit is pea soup. They kept the room cold to make people's breath show on film. We know all of that. It's imaginary. It's showbiz, baby. This just ruins movies. It ruined The Exorcist for me when I was 13, because I kept waiting for the scary part and it just never came. I so badly wanted to prove that I was a big toughie that I didn't pay any attention to the story or the characters really, because I was on guard. I didn't want the movie to distract me or shift my focus, and that just breaks the spell of it completely. As a story, the build-up in the first act of The Exorcist is crucial to setting the stage for why the events to come are frightening, and moreover, why you should care at all. You see Reagan and Chris's happy, normal home life and get a sense of their typical personalities, so that later, when a demon gets all sloppy with Reagan's bod, it's shocking. There's a contrast there. That's essential. It also lulls you into a sense of stability and normalcy so that you're not as emotionally prepared for the terrible spooking you are meant to receive. If you've never heard of The Exorcist, that would work really well. But, you know, it's kind of hard to get yourself in that mindset because we all know what happens in the movie. We all know she becomes a spooky demon girl. And then everybody talks about that like it's the scariest thing they've ever seen, but it looks terrible. It looks like shit. It looks like she's wearing silly putty on her face. But if you've been emotionally primed to believe that the movie will scare your dick off, then that hour or so of scene setting just is so goddamn boring. Now don't get me wrong, watching it now, the idea of having a child who is ill and nobody knows why, and you just have to sit back as all these invasive tests are done on her, all of the while she continues to deteriorate as doctors all give you conflicting reasons as to why, that's a very scary idea in its own right. But you know, kind of punctured by the fact that we, the audience, know what is wrong with her. She's chock full of demons. Kind of hard to maintain a sense of mystery about what's wrong with Reagan when the title of the movie is The Exorcist. You can't cure a brain lesion with an exorcism.
Mildred is not a doctor. Nothing in this video should be taken as medical advice. Maybe exorcisms do help with brain lesions. How do I know? Ask your doctor if exorcisms are right for you.
So it kind of drags. It doesn't do the thing it is advertised as doing, and it's harder to appreciate the things that it does right as a result. I've talked before about how the idea that horror media is meant specifically to scare you is reductive. I don't think anyone is scared by shit like the Babysitter movies or Cabin in the Woods or most slasher movies, quite frankly. That being said, a movie being scary is still usually seen as a mark of quality in the genre. Not scaring the viewer isn't necessarily failure, but scaring the viewer is definitely success. Which is weird, because even though scaring the viewer is meant to be a good thing, people actively resist it. They try not to let the movie get them. They fight to make sure they enjoy the movie less. The Exorcist, for whatever reason, scares a lot of people and is thus considered successful for this reason. It very much does not scare me, even though I am primed to be scared specifically by this movie. I was raised terribly Catholic. I'm terrified of demons and devils. Other infinitely worse exorcism movies have successfully frightened me. This one just does nothing. I find it interesting, I'm invested in the story, but like, pretty calm throughout, and if I'm being honest, often bored. Now maybe a lot of the effect has worn off with time. I'm too familiar with the imagery of this movie and its imitators to feel any sense of mystery or tension, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. I don't really feel like I have that problem with other classic movies, but maybe that's it. Maybe that's why. So then, is The Exorcist overrated? I don't know. Not really. Not in the sense that its quality doesn't stack up to its popularity. But I think it is kind of overrated in the sense that the way it is remembered negatively affects how it's received today. It isn't that people think the movie's better than it is, it's that the way people think the movie is makes the movie less good than it could be. And that's something we don't think about often. We don't like to think about how our preconceptions shape how we watch a movie, how we bring an idea of what a movie is meant to be into that viewing, and how that might alter the experience. The scariness of The Exorcist is definitely overstated, in my opinion. Some of that, no doubt, has to do with how shocking much of the imagery was when it was initially released, and some of it is just because people like to play along. They like to let the movie scare them. Give it that air, that fun creepiness of being the scariest movie of all time. Because for some people, maybe that makes the experience a little better. Either way, one mentality that I think we should all kind of work to rid ourselves of is the idea that it's good to be proud of not being scared by a movie. I think it shows a lack of imagination. Obviously, a lot of movies are not going to scare anybody. That Winnie the Pooh slasher is probably not going to scare you, no matter how much imagination you have, but the ability to be scared by a movie is maybe something you have to work on a little, that you have to cultivate. And that's what draws me back to this movie. Because someday, I hope I'll be as scared as everyone else when I watch it. But maybe we could get rid of the scenes where the cop asks two separate priests out on movie dates, not because they're bad scenes, but because I don't really understand what they're doing in the movie, why they're there. Really, the whole cop subplot was unnecessary. Really trimmed that one down. And it's also, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but it's a little weird to have the Catholic Church presented as an unambiguous moral good in the year of our Lord 2022, as though that if you want to keep people safe from evil, you know who you can rely to do that is Catholic priests. Feels like you could use a pretty big asterisk there.